What the do you want to know?
No, let me just give me some time. Damn, take another drink. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of a DG Talk. This one is a little bit different. Here with my good friend Justin. We're out here in Miami, Florida, and so how's the trip been so far for you, Justin?
Honestly, pretty solid. We were actually kind of talking about this earlier, like off cam too. But I think for me, it's been like a very like stress-free trip. I've been able to like connect with some people I really wanted to connect with on this trip, and haven't had anything really fall through, which is nice. Usually on these trips, you know how it can be.
Yeah. This is, I think, our third trip doing this. We've done Arizona, California, and then now Miami. From your perspective, do you think there's a difference between the cities? Do you see more reception from models in certain cities, or what's your take on it?
It's a good question. Well, I used to live in LA. I was out there for about a year and a half, and so I do have like I would say more connections out there compared to like Miami or even or Arizona. But yeah, I don't know. It's tough to say. Like the Miami is definitely like a grind. You know, being out here, like the people here definitely grind it out, but it's a different type of grind than like LA has.
Right.
LA, I think, is a lot more people like looking for something to do. And then in Miami, I think there's always something to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then we kind of stay around like Phoenix, Scottsdale, or, in Arizona.
Yeah.
That place is cool, but it's not like a city like LA or Miami by any means. It's definitely a smaller city.
Yeah, I mean, my perspective on it was definitely in the Arizona, a lot of work throughout the space that we rented, and then maybe some pure spaces here and there. But definitely, I think a city like LA and a city like Miami open up not just other spaces to rent, because there's a plethora of spaces on pure space more than your average, like either in Houston or maybe some cities in the Midwest. But there's a lot more spaces in cities like New York, LA, Miami, and then you have the beaches in those cities too. So if you don't want a cool aesthetic studio, you can, hey, let's go to the beach and literally spend all day to the beach and have your models come out there and
Very
create
true.
your content.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah, Arizona, you get the desert climate, and like depending on what time of year you're there, you can't be out in that desert climate for
Right.
too long. It's game over. So yeah, having the areas that you can go, like you were saying, Miami, the beach, especially LA, kind of cool. You can actually get into a desert climate there, not with a pretty short drive, which is kind of cool. But definitely temperature wise, it's a lot easier to be outside there than Arizona.
Arizona, yeah. I wanted to touch on, I know that you have your normal 9 to 5 gig, your 9 to 5 job. So doing that, and then also, that is kind of like a good cushion for you, having that cushion. Is there anything that you're like working on this year that you like are focusing on, or new things that you want to start producing with the models you're working with?
Yeah, for sure. So, like, I'm really happy with like where I'm at in my like professional career outside of photography, and I tell a lot of people like I think that's what's kept me in the game as long as I've been in it.
Right.
There was a short period of time where I was like trying to do photography just like 24/7, and it's a pretty like volatile market.
Yeah.
You got to book work. There's like so much that goes into it, and when you're like a one-person show, it's like such a heavy weight on the shoulders, I would say.
Yeah.
So what my experience with that was is just I kind of started losing like my creativity with it because I was just taking like any gig I could get. I got to pay the bills. So being able to like have a successful professional career has been awesome for me. It's been able to let me like separate like work from play. Like I still keep like my passion and like everything is super fun with photography, which is kind of nice for me.
Right.
But it also, gives me the financial security, like where I know my bills are paid. I know I'm, putting money in the bank to save, great stock options, and, to set myself up for the future that way too.
Right.
Because I still think, I'll be presented with cool photography opportunities no matter what. Just because my work speaks for itself, and I think people like it, they see it. And, not having to put just 200% effort into one thing is kind of a nice weight off the shoulders, I would say.
And I wanna go back in time a little bit when you did make the move from Seattle to LA. And I know, like, with your job, you were in a very fortunate position where you could transfer from one city to the next. I guess let me know if there was anything that was a big shift or a big change. Of course, you still had your main 9 to 5, but going from a city like Seattle to LA, did that, help the creativity or shift things financially, or kind of take me through that on how that shift went?
Yeah. So I went from like a full-time role in my career when I was in Seattle to more of a part-time role in Los Angeles. So financially, it was definitely like kind of a lateral move for me with the professional part of the work. But I feel like I was able to make like some very good connections in Los Angeles that I otherwise never would have made in Seattle. I learned a lot about like that city and the culture there, which is really cool. Very different than Seattle. Seattle has a great culture of its own, but Los Angeles is a city that is talked about all over the world. You know what I mean? So experience-wise, I think it was like a very enriching time, but financially, it wasn't like the greatest time for me. I was good, I had my bills paid and everything, but I'm definitely like in a more prosperous position now, I would say, compared to back then. Just being able to have that experience under my belt, and it taught me a lot. I was able to learn like cool different things with photography too, so that was pretty dope. And then I don't know, I really do cherish my time that I spent there, but I love Seattle, and being around my family and friends there was a huge part of it. So it's pretty homesick being in LA after the amount of time that I was there. It was a cool city, but it's a tough city to meet, like, in my opinion, like genuine people in, especially within the industry.
Right.
There's a lot of that like FOMO
I got you.
type of personality out there. It's just kind of always looking for the next best thing to do, and so cancellations happen more often than anywhere out there in my experience. So
and I mean, on that point, with the work that we do, working with models a lot, what with as long as we've kind of been doing it, I'm kind of on year 10 since I picked up a camera, but I've been doing my work full time since 2020. What pushes you and motivates you to keep going and creating and staying consistent when a lot of people that we know over the years have kind of fallen off or gone a different route? What kind of keeps the fuel going for you?
That's a good question, man. I would say, honestly, the experiences, the people are a big part of it. Like, I'm a people person. Like, I would say I'm like an extrovert from the outside, but once I get to know somebody, like, I try to make it like a strong bond with them. I'm like super into, like being funny and silly and probably inappropriate, but hey, it's just getting to know the different people and like understand where they come from. That's a huge part of it. I would say probably that's number one on my list. But also like constantly learning.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people fall into the trap of settling with like what they know and what they do. And I think from a photography standpoint or artistic standpoint, I think it's good to keep evolving and try new things. And like this year, I've started to put in 2024 like a heavy emphasis on like getting back into the studio, trying more stuff there. Like it's actually something I did. Actually, when I lived in LA, I shot in studios quite a bit, but that's such a long time ago now. It's like almost 7 years ago, really, I was there. And in Seattle, I guess in that 7-year span, we saw a big jump in a certain type of content creation. And, so I've like I fell into, doing that sort of stuff, which is cool. But, I want to get back into, studio work, stretch my muscles there and kind of get back into that.
I think whenever I first started seeing your work, of course, it was a lot of natural light, and definitely on these past trips that we've done together over these past couple months, I've really seen you evolve as well on like, you know, bringing in consistent lighting. Even on this trip, I think was probably the most like you're busting out the lights, you got the consistent lighting on, messing with the Kelvin, you know, seeing how things look is really cool to see, because I really feel that, you know, everybody who, you know, is either a photographer or videographer or just an artist in general should continue to evolve. And there's always trends out there, you know, things on Instagram or TikTok, which is good. But I think a true artist that can stay consistent and continue to thrive are the ones that can kind of create their own flow within themselves.
Absolutely.
And take, you know, inspiration that they see online and kind of switch it up and then, you know, produce something new. But no, I'm excited for, you know, new things that, yeah, I know you've been asking me questions about like, oh, what's that light, and that's a cool stand, and V-mount this and stuff like that, which is great to hear, and I'm happy to share that information with you, because to me it's just like all my knowledge is in my head. And for people who are like trying to get into it, I remember in 2020, that's when I got into it during the pandemic, of just, you know, in the studio working with lighting, and I know that it's a continuous thing. It's like life in a sense, where you just gotta, it's a new day, it's a new atmosphere, different cities, and lighting, especially consistent lighting, is gonna look different in different studios. You know, you might have a small space, a big space, and the more that you use that light and work with those different angles, it'll just become second nature. I feel like you'll reach a point where like your daylight stuff will eventually match your consistent lighting stuff, and then people will see that kind of like a dual threat in a way of like, hey, this guy doesn't just do this, he can also do this as well. And it's so funny. I feel like every time we're on these trips, we're always talking about the next trip.
Yep.
I think
that's been the theme. We always get the next trip, like the idea of it, like we're going here.
Yeah.
Maybe during this time frame, like we set it up.
Yeah, I think Arizona. I think you might have mentioned LA, and then I was just like, okay, and then I think during LA on the LA trip, we were like, hey, let's put some fillers out from Miami. I think we were even telling the models that we were there with. They're like, hey, we're thinking about going to Miami. But no, I think that's important, and I'm glad that, you know, I continue to. I'm always someone that likes to put myself out there, and I remember seeing the trips that you would do for the longest time, and I was like, man, it'd be cool to do a trip with Justin, or do a trip with, you know, somebody on my social media that like I follow and like I like their work. And so I really think that, you know, other creators out there should kind of you know, get into a circle, start meeting like-minded people. And of course the industry is kind of up and down on, you know, someone might be cool one era, and then the next era they're like, no, you know, things, we don't talk with them, or this or that. But I think the people that, you know, stay consistent, and, you know, they figure it out in some way. They start getting in line with people that are on that same path.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've made my best relationships in this industry by going on trips with people. You get to know people a lot better than, you know, just hanging out with them for a couple hours shooting. When you're around somebody, you know, for a week, you can dive deeper and like develop those like meaningful relationships, and really learn a lot more about the person, and not just make it all work, you know what I mean? So I would definitely encourage people, you know, if you see an opportunity, or if you come up with the idea yourself, you know what I mean? Like reach out to people and, you know, present the option, like put in the work ahead of time, and like make sure that like you're doing the research, like, hey, this is like what I'm thinking of. Don't just come up. It's like approaching anybody, whether you're approaching a model or a client or, you know, a photographer, anybody that you're trying to learn stuff, right? You don't want to just be like, hey, want to travel with me, or, you know, want to do this, and it's like, well, what work have you put into it? You know what I mean? Like, you got to tell me more, essentially.
Right.
So I just, you know, I encourage people to, you know, connect with people. That's the thing, you know. It's how you'll create like meaningful relationships, but also like great connections. There's people I've been able to work with because I went on trips with people. You know what I mean? They know me from that person now. So, you know, just definitely connect.
One thing that just came to my mind right now is that, of course, like we talk about, future trips while we're on the current trip. But it's almost seemed like a pattern in a way where it seems like the cities in a way keep getting bigger and bigger, or in a way. And I think on this trip we mentioned Hawaii and Joshua Tree, and of course like those type of locations are very I feel like euphoric or very like heightened as far as Joshua Tree. It's a desert, very isolated, but if you have a beautiful location, you can create some great work. And then of course Hawaii is absolutely beautiful. Do you, in a way, I don't know if I'm going to make sense on this, but do you, in a way of not thinking too much about it, as life goes on and as work drives you to, get better, do you find that your mind is telling you, hey, I need a more beautiful location, I need, maybe out of the country, or is there anything that might be coming up that you have plans for, of like, hey, I want to go out of the country and do this specific location because the juices are flowing, the energy's there, the passion's there?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to sound like a broken record, but it just comes down to the experience for me. You know what I mean? It's like Hawaii and Joshua Tree are both like you were saying, kind of like more spiritualistic places, like, right? But and they're fun to go to whether you're on vacation or you're, with your family or, anything like that. But if you can go out there with a group of creatives, like, just think about what you can create.
Oh, for sure.
Have produce, really, is like the word. So to me, it's less about the actual location personally, but it's more about what can we do there? You know what I mean? Like what heights can we reach as far as like doing something? You know what I mean? What opportunities does being in that place present? I don't know. It's just I'm excited for either or whatever too. I don't think I'll ever stop going to California and like Los Angeles.
Right.
And like Miami, it's super fun too. But if you can step off and go do something a little different every once in a while, I think it's good too. It's kind of like I was saying, like with photography, try doing different things. Don't get stale. Like don't keep going to the same places. Try new things. No, actually, the number one place on my bucket list of places I want to go is just back to London. I was there when I was younger, when I was like 14 or 15, and loved it. I loved that it was like a completely different culture, but luckily it was like English speaking. I could like really understand and communicate with people, which is nice. I've gone to different countries, and it's just that is like a stressor for me. It's like when I can't communicate like super well with somebody. Luckily, I've been fortunate to like know people in a lot of countries, and like social media has helped with me connecting with people in that way. So I've had like wherever I've gone, like kind of a local showing me around or helping me out, or I think it comes back down to the connections you make. You know what I mean? By being, open to creating those connections with people, it's allowed me to prosper in these different like countries and stuff. So
Definitely.
London is definitely number one though, for sure.
I've never been, but it would be amazing to go one day.
It's cool. I'm like super into like history and stuff too.
Okay.
Pretty historic place. And, and there's just like an awesome scene out there in general. I mean, some of the best photographers in the world have come from London. And, it's just there's so much. I mean, the location's got to be crazy too. They've like done a pretty good job preserving like as much of the historical buildings and stuff that they have. So I imagine there's probably some like cool studios and houses and apartments and things like that. So it's got to be kind of cool. You can get creative depending on what you find.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the models that we work with, because it's a little interesting, because we both shoot beautiful models, of course, but I feel like the styles are different. And so I was curious if there's a specific, I don't know, look, or if there's, whenever you're either looking for a new model to work with for your portfolio specifically, is there anything that you have in mind, or something that, and it basically tells yourself, hey, this would be a great model for your portfolio?
Yeah. I was having a conversation earlier today too with one of the models I work with today out here. I've shot everything from like tattoo magazine covers to like flash fashion bloggers in the New York Times. So it's like I really have been kind of all across the board my whole career. And I've worked with like agency rep models. I've worked with first timers, and my whole thing is like, do they have an interesting look to me? Like I know that like the people I work with are probably gonna have other people that like to see them, right? But there are certain people that I think are huge models or celebrities and stuff like that, and it'd be cool to work with them, but I might meet somebody that has been modeling for a year or two that I'd much rather work with just because like they have that interesting look.
Right.
There's some sort of something that sets them apart in my eye versus the mass population, their opinions and stuff like that. So that's, I mean, like one of the biggest driving factors is like, do I find them like interesting in some certain way? But beyond that, like I've also met people that I thought would be awesome to shoot, and then they're kind of shitty people, and and then it just like turns me off to it, and I'm just like, it's all right. There's always somebody else to work with and connect with. So, I try to be the best person I can be, and I don't feel like it's like a lot to ask of somebody else to be just a good person. And sometimes when you get that vibe that they're not, it's just can be kind of off-putting. So, I don't know. I mean, I hope I keep trying new things and working with new people, but I definitely, like I said, I'm trying to kind of get back into like the studio with stuff. So I have ideas and like visions for things, and it just kind of depends on who I come across and like what I can picture them for, like as far as like concepts and stuff that I have in my mind.
Right.
If I want to keep it like super simple, that might be easier. But if I want to do like a real elaborate production, I might need like a specific look or a specific person for that. So I always try to, create those little save boards, like Instagram and
Mood
stuff.
boards,
Who's where, like what models here in this city, what models here in that city.
Yeah.
And then it's a little bit tougher to do bigger productions on the road versus at home, just because I don't know the lay of the land so much. And like having like a team in Seattle, which is also something I'm like really trying to do right now, is like create, a team where I can bring people together and just have all the production done there at once. I don't have to have a model running from place to place and stressing themselves out that way. So at home, I think I'll be able to do like bigger production stuff for right now, but on the road, there's definitely possibilities for it too. But definitely just always looking for that new face that catches my eye.
Yeah, at dinner earlier, we were talking about, I was talking about doing workshops and, doing workshops, and then also like I'm wanting to do, prints this year and, really start elevating the work and, just, start doing bigger things. Do you have any big goals for 2024 with models that you're working with on, just like you were saying, how you want to create a team like in Seattle and maybe potentially travel with that team? Is there anything that you're thinking of for this year that you'd want to produce or put out into the world?
Yeah. Man, I'd like to really, it's been something I've always wanted to do for maybe the past like 5 years, but I really want to get my own studio space where I can like just create and be at whenever I want. I'm not like, worried about times and renting and stuff like that. That would be definitely, that's like the number one goal for me. That's where I'd like to go. Whether it happens this year or not, I'm not sure. But, I have some great connections in Seattle for like studio spaces. So I'm able to work with them and, I have like a couple of certain spots I really, really like shooting at anyway. So it almost feels like mine, but just being able to like walk in the door whenever I want. If I get an idea and I want to go in at 2 a.m., I could go do that. But in certain situations, that's not possible right now.
Yeah. So I want to, kind of wrap this up real quick. And, but to wrap it up, I want you to give 3 pieces of advice to younger Justin Let's say he is maybe, you know, a couple of years into, you know, photography, and you know, you're doing your thing, but he's given advice from Justin now. So if there were 3 pieces of advice you'd give younger Justin, what would they be?
Oof, man, I'm trying to think of all the.
Yeah, and you can take
I
your
don't wanna
time.
say- yeah, I don't even
I
want to
put
say
you
regrets,
like
yeah.
say it all out right now, but you can think on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say number 1, don't try to be a people pleaser. No matter what you do, people aren't going to be happy all the time. It's not my job, or it's not your job, to you know, do every little thing for somebody to try to appease every little thing. Like, they need to meet you halfway on things. I think that led to me getting taken advantage of in certain situations when I was younger. Number 2, I don't think it's anything that I never was, but be good to everybody you meet in the industry, because you never know who somebody's going to be and how they can help you.
Very true.
And what they can provide to you, whether it's advice or friendship or, you know, something more industry focused, you know, like a connection or you know, don't be afraid to make that connection with somebody, basically. And third, man, communicate with your people, because the only 2 really negative experiences in my entire photography career come around communication, poor communication. And, you know, I won't go into the big details on them, but there's something that I really regret happening, and I wish things were different with it. So, and I think just by communicating, it would have been much better.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate it, Justin. Yeah. And you guys, we've been here with Justin in a different environment on this episode. We're here in Miami, Florida. Cheers, Justin, Cheers, to the year ahead.
Yeah.
There we go. All right, let's go.
Cut that shit.